Well, hello, Facebook. Welcome so much. My name is Wes Hagen. I'm the winemaker at J.Wilkes Wines and the brand ambassador at the Miller Family Wine Company. And I want to welcome all of you to Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. Here we go again. Week 11. Okay, week 11. So let me think about that for a second. We've been on the air for 11 weeks. We've done 58 shows and over 63 hours of content. So if you're not tired of me, thank goodness. Thank you so much. Jason and Michelle's on. We're going to have such a good show tonight, guys. I'm really, really excited. We're doing something different now. We're going Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be spent putting together a little extra content, and so nice to see you, Michelle. Thank you so much for your invitation, and it looks like I am going to be able to attend your lecture. So I'm very, very excited about that, and really, really just can't wait. That should be fantastic. And Christopher, welcome, welcome. So glad you guys are being here. If you haven't been here before, here's the deal. We're going to taste a wine at 5 o'clock, talk about it a little bit. Tonight, we are going to get super, super geeky. And Don, lovely to have you here, brother. So stoked to have you here. So today we're going to talk about something we've never talked about on the show, and that is human olfaction and the evolutionary process that got us from the earthworm to our current genius of human discernment. And I'm going to tell you guys basically how the human olfaction has basically evolved over the last 400 million years. So that's going to be fun. And I think the focus tonight is going to be focus. We're going to be very, very focused on the tasting. We're going to be focused on the discussion of the evolutionary process of the development of human olfaction, otherwise known as how we smell, how we taste, and then a little bit about why that matters in wine. And then we're going to close it up. So it might be a half hour, might be 40 minutes, who knows? But I'm going to try to keep it a little bit tighter for sure. And I just have to clear my palate just a little bit, and it is day drinking. So cheers. Stoked you guys are here. Starting with a little Viognier. Did we get Dom? Dom's here. Let's drink Dom's wine. And Dominic, I don't know if anyone calls you Dom. And believe me, I've been married 20 years. I can't be offended. So if probably because my wife is one of the least offensive people I've ever met. But if I do offend you, please let me know, and let me know if you don't want me to call you Dom. So, Teresa, what up? So nice to have you here. I will try to give you some visuals because you're listening in the car. I guess now I've become a podcast. So I'm officially a podcaster, and Julie's in the house. Julie, so nice to have you here. So stoked to have you. I love the wisdom of Dominic Profacci in Gardner, New York, who sends me his wines. And we taste them before we fire up our show on Instagram at 5 o'clock. Which is in 10 minutes. So we got 10 minutes to talk a little bit about this beautiful rosé. So, the other Dominic, we also just got, Dominic Bavetta. So we have two Doms in the house. Welcome Dom number one, Dom number two, or however you guys want to fight it out. Tonight we're talking a little bit about a rosé from Gardner, New York. And I'm guessing this is Noirette. So Karen, welcome. So lovely to have you here. And Dominic is going to tell us a little bit of something, and I'll tell you guys. He's on the J.Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara Facebook page. By the way, if this Facebook Live goes out on Wes Hagen, go over to, I've got another camera on a better machine going to J.Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara. So that would be very important. So Dominic is going to probably tell us just a little bit about what goes into this beautiful rosato. You go by Nick. Cool. Well, now I know. That's even easier to say. Nick of time. Thank you. So we've got, if you want to tell me a little bit about what's in the rosé, I will put it in my glass and we'll get to day drinking. If you haven't been here at day drinking, there's one rule, and that is if you're waiting for me to tell you to drink, you're in the wrong damn place. This is sort of like an independent study with a teacher there helping you along. But seriously, hand, drink, rinse, and repeat. We would love that. Ryan Sherman's in the house. Love to have you here, Ryan. Thank you so much. We're tasting a wine real quick from Gardner, New York. It is a rosé made by Nick Profacci. Nick has been one of the biggest supporters of my show. In the 11th week, whoa, and almost the 60th. Oh, and Lynn's here. I apologize. My phone is falling off and doing crazy things, but that's okay. It's a Saignée extraction of all your red hybrids: Noirette, Cora Noir, de Chaunac, and Marquette. So this is a 4-grape hybrid blend, and I can honestly say I've probably never had. I might have had a rosé from Marquette, Don't think I've ever had one from Noiret or Coro Noir. So these are American French hybrid grapes that have come from a number of places, from Ontario, Canada, through guys like the de Chaunac, who was also an amazing guy who put together a lot of these hybrids that I was reading a little bit about. I don't want to go too far into them because I don't know enough to speak with authority. But so this is a blend of 4 different grapes, and it is a Saignée extraction. What does Saignée mean? Well, Saignée means to bleed. Sanguine would be from the same Latin root. So sanguine or Saignée means to bleed. So why is this bled? It's bled because we took the red grapes, we crushed them, we put them into a fermenter, and then depending on how much color, we take some of the juice off early and take that juice off the skins and make it just like white wine into a rosé wine. So rosé can have anything from 0 skin contact, just press some red grapes off and make a rosé, or it can be bled off a red wine fermentation, or it can be just allowed to sit on the skins and the entire thing can be put back into the press to make a rosé purely. Most home winemakers and small production winemakers are always making a Saignée because they don't have enough grapes to just give them all to the rosé program. A secondary sort of occurrence during the Saignée is that it actually causes your red wine to be darker and have more phenolic compounds and a little bit chewier. Take a little bit of the juice off, you're going to reduce the amount of juice to skin ratio, and as a result, because the juice goes down and the skins go higher, you're going to get a darker, richer red wine. It's done very, very commonly. The general feeling in the winemaking community is it should never, ever, ever be more than 15 gallons per ton. At 15 gallons per ton, you are pulling off about 10% of the juice. And anything other than 10% generally has a tendency to really throw the finished red wine into a little bit of confusion. But we're day drinking and I'm talking too much and drinking too little. Although the problem is when I'm drinking, it's dead air, right? It's not dead air. You guys are watching. It's a nice combination of complex. I think this will really, really appeal to a European or a continental wine drinker, and I'll tell you why. The wine has this beautiful little hint of reduction. It was probably made, I'm guessing, in stainless steel or potentially in glass. And so it has a little tiny bit of what I am very, very used to smelling in a provincial rosé, in a Rhone rosé, in a rosé especially maybe that it had a little bit of a Syrah influence. So what I'm picking up here in this Gardner, New York Profaci rosé that was sent to me, which is a blend of 4 different hybrid grapes being grown in New York. My guess is this could certainly use a decantation, and it could certainly use a splash decantation. It is a 2018, right? 18? Yeah. So it is pretty young. I think that once it's in a glass, if I was serving this, I would definitely put it, basically in a decanter, splash the decanter around as much as I can, either pour it back in the bottle to pour to my friends, or to just serve it in a decanter on some ice, but not in an ice bath. I don't want to get it too cold because it's got a lot of really, really cool stuff going on. So what does reduction smell like? Well, I'm getting the some nice strawberry fruit, some nice sort of sour cherry character, and then right over the top, there's this little kind of sousant of something akin to like the first time you would be going over a hill in a road and they're repaving the road, and that first little whiff of road tar. And it's not a bad thing at all. In fact, a lot of great wines that cost $500, $1,000, always have road tar in the. Does that mean I want my wines to smell like road tar? No, I'm talking about delicacy and elegance at the edge of perception. And when I describe something like road tar, I would expect to smell it in a slightly reductive rosé. And it's blowing off. It's actually picking up this really, really cool thing with those kind of like pink and red fruits. It's also picking up this little hint of patchouli. It almost smells like, and I don't mean it smells like cannabis. It almost smells like a head shop, in the sense when you walk in, there's like 400 kinds of incense incense and peppermints and all those things. I would actually say that wine has a very, very nice sort of incense kind of character to it, with some nice sort of red fruits. So cool is that? Wine is quite dry. In fact, I think if there's any residual sugar left in this wine, maybe between a gram and 2 grams, 0.1 to 0.2. First of all, the residual sugar is only perceptible in the middle of the palate. And then the acid is actually so strong, my guess is 3.18, maybe 8 grams of acid, that the acidity is so strong that if it didn't have that little bit of residual sugar to sort of buffer the acidity, I think the wine would be out of balance. So Nick, very good job of putting this wine together. I think that proper rosé, when it's this young, should have a little reductive edge. Oxygen works, so when you open this wine, just decant the living crap out of it. I think that's going to really be all you need, because it's got beautiful verve, it's got beautiful cut. It's got a real sense of that hybrid verve. Sometimes these hybrid grapes really hold on to acidity a lot better than vinifera. And my guess is this is probably about 12.5% alcohol, and probably picked around 21 bricks. And I'm not cheating because I do not see the alcohol on the label, but it is a beautiful label. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and say thank you, Nick. Really do appreciate you sending me all these beautiful wines. I have some Viogniers of various kinds from Frederick Carbone, who's another local wine grower here. Nick is not a local wine grower. He's all the way out in New York. But I do have a neighbor who took one of the flood control areas and got permission from the city of Santa Maria to plant a vineyard in it. And he takes the fruit from that vineyard, which is theoretically on either HOA or city ground, and he makes some Viognier, and I think he's got some Chard and some Pinot. So we're going to be busting those wines out. I got one last wine, a Meritage from Nick. So we'll taste that tomorrow, on Wednesday. And again, I'm going to go ahead and start us up. Here we go. Well, hey everybody on Instagram, and welcome again to everybody on Facebook. We are now live. It is officially 5 o'clock, and if it's Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, that means we're day drinking. So hey, let's get some down our throat. Let's have some fun. And if I'm not, and if you're waiting, like I said, if you're waiting for me to tell you how to drink or what to drink, you are at the wrong damn place. What we do here is we get together and I share some of my expertise and some of my history in being a professional winemaker for 25 years here in Santa Barbara County. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I love wine. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how wine works, how wine is made, why wine is fun, why we shouldn't spend all of our time talking about wine, why sometimes it's incredibly important for us just to drink and have a conversation. I like to say that wine leads to a conversation about everything except itself. Because if all you talk about is wine when you drink it, we're not probably going to be friends. Maybe if you buy a lot of my wine, I'll hang out long enough to hear you talk about wine the whole time. But when we go home, I guarantee I'm going to say to my wife, yeah, really, really nice woman, but man, I wish she could have a conversation about something other than wine. So this is where we practice. This is the practice tee. This is where we hit balls. This is where we take putts. This is where we work on our short game. So that when we get to table and we're having a fun time drinking, we're having a fun time eating, and we're with our friends and doing all this stuff, we don't have to think. We just do. The same way that you would not work on your swing on the golf course. That's what the practice facility is for. If we talk about wine and we get confident about wine, that when we're at table, we can make a quick comment about the wine if it's asked of us, or just to leave it alone and not even talk about it. So that's kind of what we do here. We have fun, we drink, we talk, and you ask questions. Obviously, I love when you guys give me some information. Tell me where you are, what you're drinking, what's going on with you, what your dog did today, what you lost last week. I don't care. I'll bring it up. I'll talk about it. If you do put it on social media, though, there is a chance I will read it out loud to the few hundred people that will eventually watch this. So I did a lot of study yesterday because I had to actually justify sort of what I was doing to my boss today. And I found out that this is the 11th week of the show. This is, I think, show number 58. I counted, we've got about 62 hours of content. So I'm going to try to shrink these a little bit, get them down to a half hour, 45 minutes. Cause, I think we can focus in and be a little bit more focused. And we're up about between 20 and 25,000 views. So, I'd say, if all of these shows went in and the Staples Center was sold out, 2 nights in a row and people were there, 20,000 people came to actually hear me talk, I'd be freaking stoked. So thanks to every single one of you, every single one of these views. It really does mean a lot to me. So I really do appreciate it. Okay. And yes, of course, Phil. So glad that Denise Flaherty, and Nancy Poe have joined us as well. Welcome. And if you're friends of Phil, you are in the right place to drink great wine and eat great food. So really looking forward to that. So I'm just going to make sure. We've got Tommy's in the house again. Thank you so much. He's drinking some pale ale from Island Brewing Company, which I think is not brewed in Hawaii. I think it's actually brewed somewhere in Ventura. And Anne-Marie Adams, so lovely to have you here. Stoked to have Karen Bennett in the house, and Dawn just came in. And we've got some folks coming in on Instagram. Thank you so much for coming in. So what are we doing today? Well, we're doing 2 things. We're going to taste one Viognier. We're going to talk a little tiny bit about Viognier, and then we tasted this Viognier early. If you're interested in the Viognier, you can always go back to the library and find a more sort of complete half-hour discussion on Viognier as a varietal. We're just going to kind of touch base and see how this Viognier is done with a repour, which is basically a system. You put the special blue cork in your wine and it absorbs the oxygen. So this Viognier has actually been in my fridge for almost 2.5 weeks, and I'm really curious to taste it. Day drinking. No teleprompter, minimum notes, no spit bucket. The more I drink, the more entertained you are. So I take one in the liver directly for all of you folks. Awesome. Peter Rogers in the house. Christy Marshall's here. It's time to rock. When Christy's here, it's day drinking. So please make sure to have a fun time. Tell me what you're drinking. Tell me where you are if I don't know you or I don't know what you're having. I really don't know what you guys are drinking. And Dead Lioness, I still have not looked up that poem. Don't tell me. I'm going to find out. In fact, I'm putting it in my notes with 2 question marks on both sides. So what we're going to do tonight, I'm really, really excited about the show because I learned a bunch of stuff this afternoon that I get to share with you guys. Again, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays now. So we started as 7 days a week. That was too much. 5 days a week for 10 weeks, could handle it. Now I need Tuesdays and Thursdays to make sure I have plenty of stuff to teach you guys. So I did what I'm hoping to do, which is do a little more deep study into stuff I don't know. And stuff that I'm curious about in the world of wine evaluation, drinking, and enjoying. So tonight, I want to talk not only about Viognier, I want to talk about the evolution of the human nose. Where did we get the nose? What the hell? Why? And where did we come from? And where are we going? And I'm going to share with you a couple of facts that are going to blow your effing mind. No problem about Hebrew. I've got so many good Jewish friends, some of them who speak Hebrew. So I'm going to find it. And hopefully it's not the Lion of Judah, because if the Lion of Judah was dead, Bob Marley would be very disappointed. Okay, here we go. So let's taste some Viognier. So this is the 2018 Viognier. J.Wilkes. My name's on the back as the winemaker, so I must be completely responsible if it's good. One thing I'm noticing right away, this wine tends to have like a little skin color to it, so it does always show almost this like little kind of almost like a golden or a pink edge. So when I see that pink edge start to come out in the wine a little bit, I'm not really worried that this wine is oxidized. It certainly is not turned gold. And I'd have to go back on my notes, but my guess is 10 days on this wine. Open. Oh, the nose is sound as a pound. In fact, I think it's even gotten more of that white floral character, those terpenes that just are popping and coming out as much as they can. It smells like super ripe peach. The peach has gone from a less ripe, almost peach skin character to a very ripe, fleshy peach character in the last 2 weeks as this wine has slowly absorbed oxygen. So why don't we want wines to oxidize? Well, we do. If you're going to age a bottle of $2,000 Bordeaux, you want the wine to age gracefully and carefully. You want there to be flavors that change. You want there to be complexity and elegance and things that you can't taste in a wine when it's young. You want to taste those. So we want to let the wine sort of let the baby fat fall out and the complexity emerge, right? So why doesn't it work to let the wine just sit on our counter and oxidize a little faster to the exact point of complexity that long-term aging would do. Well, it doesn't work that way. Very, very small amounts of oxygen. What really matters is how many parts per million of dissolved oxygen are in the solution of the wine. Now, if you bottle of wine to age gracefully, usually it's going to be between a half a part and 1 part per million dissolved oxygen. So as a result, that amount of oxygen is going to cause very slow, very methodic changes in the wine from month to month, from year to year, and wines that can go 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 years. That is the process they go through. Now, when we open a bottle of wine and begin drinking it, now, even though that little repour was doing its best to try to absorb all the oxygen in the bottle, my guess is it probably got up to 2 or 3 parts per million dissolved oxygen in the bottle. I'd have to ask the gentleman who invented the repour. He would probably have the data on that. So as a result, this wine has had more oxygen than it deserves or would have in a long period of time of aging. But does it taste like how the wine would taste after 2 to 3 years on the bottle? I don't think so. I think the wine has been bottled and released, and it's so young that it's absorbed some oxygen slowly but methodically, and more than would be just the bottle being closed, but a lot less than if the wine had not been closed with a repour. Fleshy and spicy. Oh my. Smells like a peach pie. That's what it smells like. It's got like a crustiness, and it's got like a sweet sort of that sweet sort of confectionery, crusty kind of smell. You can almost smell sugar, but I know this wine is bone dry, so it's really interesting that way. And as always, I always get a little tiny bit of the fruitiest bit of cheddar cheese, and I call it rennet. Rennet is basically, it's like an enzyme. It's like a scraping from the inside of a ruminant's stomach. And it actually helps cheese kind of actually congeal. And I actually smelled cheddar rennet one time, and I'm a huge fan of artisanal cheddar cheese. Especially from the East Coast. There's some good stuff being made in California too. But Vermont, Wisconsin, I know Wisconsin's not on the East Coast, it's in the northern tier. The problem is whenever I go to Wisconsin, I drink with Wisconsinites and I forget where the hell Wisconsin is. Highest per capita binge drinking, alcoholism, bars per capita, and I think there's no drinking age if you're with an adult in a bar. Don't want to live in a nanny state, right? All right, so let's get some Viognier in the mouth, and I hope you, Nick, welcome. I cannot believe how sound that wine is. I actually thought I was going to have to do a little... I didn't really want to open a brand new sample. Very Presbyterian of me. I'm a Scotch Presbyterian, but who's now basically makes alcohol for a living. My family was cheap and we didn't drink. And now that does obviously influence who I am and how I act. Interestingly, when I pulled this out of the fridge, I looked at the date on the label. I'm like, that's going to be tough. Man, I am going to drink the rest of this bottle with dinner tonight. I have no idea what I'm going to have, but it's going to be absolutely wonderful. Christina Larner, how lovely to see you. And Chuck Buck 3, I'm glad you paid that extra buck, dude, because it's going to make a huge difference, and I'm stoked you are. So it's all well and good. We're talking about Viognier. This is a 2018 J.Wilkes Viognier. And if for some reason, if you ever have a problem with any of the feeds, Instagram, you can go over to Wes Hagen Facebook. You can go to J.Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara Facebook. Interestingly enough, I've never had any problem with Instagram dumping me the same way I have Facebook. It's owned by the same company. It's probably the same codex and a lot of the same zeros and ones, but for some reason it works a little bit better. So, and let me know if something happens on the feed. I'd like to know from your side what happens. 2018 Viognier. This also got J.Wilkes into Wine Business Monthly, which is the biggest trade magazine of the wine business. We got onto the Hot 10, which means we are one of the hottest 10 brands that is up and coming in the entire United States. So how exciting was that? We were actually really hoping to get on the Hot 10 in the next 5 years, and we got in 2. So we were really, really excited. It's sort of like the Oscars. You kind of have to be a little political, and you got to put the right advertising in certain spots to be eligible, or what have you. And boom, we got it. So like really, really stoked about this wine. That's it got not, and it was a great article that quoted me as saying, this is a wine that wears its sensuality on its sleeve. And I still think that that's absolutely accurate. Viognier, yeah, Viognier doesn't like to hide the fact that it likes to party. It wants to meet you halfway in the glass and say, look what I have to offer. It can be the annoying little kid on the diving board yelling, look at me, look at mom, look at me, look at me. It's pretty showy. Condrieu, the French Rhone version of Viognier, the original Viognier, it's a little bit more elegant and restrained, and it can age incredibly gracefully. California Viognier is full force, in your face, floral, aromatic white. If you're not a fan of aromatic whites, or you like white wines that have very cloying and restrained aromatic principles, Viognier might not be for you, but it is an absolutely delicious and fun wine to taste. And this 2018 is in a beautiful place. So, all right, let's see. So we got, we have, welcome to Peter Rogers and Chef Avinash. I'm hoping, Chef Avi, we can get together again soon and have some of that amazing, amazing food that you got going on. Hopefully, you're still serving food out the back door in San Pedro, pretty much where I grew up at Rat Beach. Love it. Thumbs up to you as well, my friend. Cheryl McPhillips, Mark's here, and Marcia McNamara is here too. Loads of folks coming on. So awesome to see all you guys. And let me know, J.Wilkes people, on the J.Wilkes Santa Barbara page. Just in case you can't see me, let me know. Yes, Michelle. That scampi was really good. I just used too much damn butter. The nice thing is that we had lots of extra garlic butter at the end of the meal to put maybe on some vegetables, which, nothing makes vegetables better than butter, and butter. I think Julia Child said that. So I just wanted to make sure I welcomed. And Santa Rita Hills Wine Alliance. Yeah. Barbara, what's happening, darling? So stoked to have you here. I miss the Santa Rita Hills a lot. I'm not bummed that I'm working with Bien Nacido and Solomon Hills and French Camp and the Millers, because it's a beautiful thing and I still have a job. Thank goodness, right? Before we go on and I tell you how the human nose works evolutionarily, because this is a really, really cool story, I want to bring up something that came up in a meeting, a monthly sales meeting this morning by our national sales manager, Justin. And Justin was talking to a bunch of other CEOs and a lot of other people that are trying to maneuver through the new business climate in the United States. And he said one thing keeps coming up with a lot of other national sales managers and CEOs. And this is the question. And I would love to know your answer to this. Why did it take a frickin' pandemic to get us to be this creative? I guess his point is a lot of his cohort, a lot of his high level management people are seeing reactions and seeing passion and seeing effort within their sales force that they've never seen before. That the way, I'm going to say the word, the way that we're pivoting right now and the way that we're reinventing our businesses, the way I think, is necessity the mother of invention? Resistance to change. Okay, I like that. I think number one, the first thing that came into my mind is like, why did I pivot? Why did I get creative? Why did I start this show, just a couple days after I got locked down? And I think, to be absolutely and perfectly frank with you, I remember waking up a day and asking myself, if I was my boss, why would I keep me gainfully employed? I had 12 states on my calendar to visit and sell wine in about 25 different markets in those states. I was supposed to be in Hawaii last week. I'm supposed to be in San Francisco this week. I'm supposed to be down doing some LA events later in this week. They're all gone. So I asked myself the fundamental question, if I was my boss, and this might be a good question for you to ask, if I was my boss and I woke up tomorrow and I asked myself, why am I keeping Wes Hagen on the payroll? I want there to be an abundance of information flooding into his head. Well, he's got 20,000 views. He's got, 11 weeks of this show. We're selling wine direct to customer. We're seeing an increase in DTC. All these things matter. So, and you guys honestly have been part of me keeping my job. Because if no one showed up and I was just here talking to a blank screen and being like, oh, 3 views. Yay, 3 people think I'm cool. It's all well and good, right? I mean, 3 views is 3 views. I would appreciate 2. But the sense that we've been really getting some good views on the show really just makes me understand that the way that the world is changing is giving us an amazing amount of creativity. Yes, so I think, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, one of my favorite bands. So, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. And, a lot of us, we do our work, we do our job, we go home at night, and sometimes a fire under our ass or a little, kick in the butt, move us forward, get us thinking. And nothing is more, a kick in the butt than being, basically the sole, money earner in a family and having to make your bills. That's really important. And I have to say, thank you again to the Miller Family Wine Company for keeping basically the entire national sales team, including myself, gainfully employed. So we're stoked. We're here. We're having fun. And if you want to support the Miller Family Wine Company, go over to MFWC, check out what's going on, or MillerFamilyWines.com. You can check out J.Wilkes.com. The J.Wilkes discounts are still effective, 20% on 6-pack or more, 25% on a 12-pack or more, and that goes on top of Wine Club discount. So Wine Club discount over a case right now is just absolutely ridiculous. So if I were you, we're not sending out wine to the Wine Club for another 4 or 5 months. Click the button, join the wine club, buy a case of wine. You'll be pretty amazed at exactly what wonderful of a discount you get. Okay. So much for the Strictly commercial. Speaking of Frank Zappa, right? Strictly commercial. All right. So here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about how we got a nose. How we got a nose. All right. So what was the first animal on the planet Earth 300-400 million years ago that could taste? Believe it or not, the mouth existed before the nose. So we actually, to understand the olfactory sense, the olfactory lobe, all the flavor receptors and the olfactory receptors in the human body, we start without the nose. We start with the mouth. So what creature on the planet Earth could taste first? The answer is the earthworm. The earthworm was the first animal that could eat or could taste, and there's a really good reason for it. Because an earthworm, so an earthworm basically eats dirt, right? So an earthworm is kind of like a sieve, or a filter. So an earthworm eats like a shrimp. Earthworm eats through dirt, leaves its castings behind, and it absorbs whatever nutrients are in the dirt that it can use, and it leaves everything behind, and it actually increases sort of the microbiological health of the soil. So earthworm castings really good. So earthworms are very good for the environment. But one thing that's really cool about them is as they eat, they taste, because that's what they had to do. So as an earthworm moves through the soil, it's like, okay. Ooh, bitter. Well, bitter means toxicity. Crap, I better go this way. Okay, so eating, sweet. Wow, that's energy. Nom, 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 nom. Okay, keep going. Bitter, turn left, go that way. Savory. Savory, protein. Salty. Salty? Well, hydrogen or the ionic balance of our body requires salinity and salt. In fact, I'm going to trip out. The human bloodstream contains about the same amount of salt or salinity as the ocean. So literally, we have a modified ocean within our body to keep us alive outside of the ocean, and which is one of 2 things I bring up to people who deny evolution. If you deny evolution, explain to me why we have a modified ocean in our body. And number 2, I'm going to give you a 5-second head start. I'm going to release a lion, and I'm going to see how well you brachiate. Because I'll tell you what, you're going to climb a tree pretty damn fast with a lion on your ass. And once you're in that tree, I'm going to ask you again, okay, do you have primates as part of your evolutionary history? And you're going to say, yes, and thank goodness. Otherwise that lion would be chewing on my booty. That's important. So evolutionarily, the earthworm, understands all the flavors because the flavors tell it which way to go in the soil. That is the earthworm palate. That's what we're calling it today, the earthworm palate. I'm basing all of this research, the beginning of this, on a doctor in Australia named Max Lake. And he wrote a book called Food on the Plate, Wine in the Glass. He was very into sexuality and sensuality and the nose of the human being very, very part of the sensuality of who we are. And when we smell wine and we taste food, it was very sexual to him. And he was a really great wine judge at the LA County Fair, and we used to hang out a lot. I'm pretty sure he would fly from Brisbane, or no, from down in southern Australia to LA to judge wine with us because I probably shouldn't say that publicly, but yeah, maybe he was there because there was a little blue pill that wasn't available in the 90s in Australia. But man, he was just the most, that guy, that Australian guy. He can drink. You don't want to take a drink every time he takes a drink. You'll end up in the hospital and dead, and he'll be laughing over your grave. But he was a hell of a dude. He was the kind of dude that could hit on your girlfriend, and you would just feel like, oh, what a nice guy. Just Max Lake. Just a mensch. Love him. His book was fantastic, and it taught me a little bit about the earthworm palate and then the mammal palate. So how do we get from the earthworm to the mammal? Why does the mammal nose develop? Well, the mammal nose develops to give us the ability to sense remotely three things, right? We can sense remotely food. I smell fermenting fruit. Well, let's go eat it and also get the nutritional addition of ethanol. I smell food. Let's go get it. Number two, you can smell danger. Is that a bear? Do you smell that? It kind of smells like cougar urine. Human beings can follow scent trails with their nose too. Mammals have better noses than you imagine. And then you could say we have the earthworm palate, the mammal palate, and the third thing is sex. We can remotely sense food, danger, and sex, which gives us a massive evolutionary advantage. So as a result, when we have this nose and we were able to remotely sense these things, food, danger, and sex, that suddenly, and believe it or not, they're finding out some stuff about mammalian olfaction, that when you smell sex, you not only just know that you're smelling a member of the opposite sex, maybe they're sexually receptive, but you can also, they're finding out that there are certain sort of subliminal cues, is what you're smelling a member of the opposite sex that's pregnant? Are you smelling someone who's diseased or weak? All of these things are coming out that the mammal palate and the mammal nose is incredible. So now we have the earthworm palate, eating through dirt, tasting bitter things, sweet things, salty things, rich things, all of these different things. Then we go to the mammal palate, where the mammals around, coming out of the age of dinosaurs into the modern world are starting to use their senses for food, danger, and sex. Then we have the sommelier palate, the human palate, the trained human palate. Untrained human palates can get about 6 to 7 different flavors simultaneously. So if you smell a wine, you can sit there with your pencil and you can probably write down 6 or 7 things you smell. When they do the same test to see how many different kind of, how many things a master sommelier can smell simultaneously, it can go up to 200. So here's the thing. And this is that we have neurobiological plasticity. Neurobiological plasticity. What the hell does that mean? I don't know. I need a drink. Explanation will be much better after a big sip. Neurobiological plasticity is basically the idea that our olfactory sense can improve, that we can actually get better at a physical process by practicing. How amazing is that? So if you're a master sommelier, and through the thousands of hours that you spend tasting, evaluating, understanding wine, goodness gracious, suddenly you're opening up your neurobiological plasticity is opening up your ability for your brain to remember how to use your olfactory senses in much more complicated manners. So here's the coolest thing. So we all learned from this idiot, Paul Bocuse, right? Paul Broca. He was a 19th century neuroanatomist, and he was studying human olfaction, and he basically said that humans can't smell. compared to rodents, compared to dogs, compared to all of these different animals. He actually used a term that I didn't actually write down, a term that basically said that humans basically can't smell. Humans are awful at olfaction. That we basically, even though we have a fairly large olfactory lobe in our brain, if you take the actual size of the brain in sort of in ratio with our olfactory lobe, that you basically are going to end up showing that we have a very low olfactory lobe to brain weight ratio. This is actually complete and utter BS. Modern studies of human olfaction shows not only do humans have a great sense of smell, that if you take all mammals, we are in the just above the median to start getting up into the maybe 60th, 65th parallel. So, I mean, we're talking all mammals on the planet. Think of all the mammals. Humans are actually in the upper half of the ability to smell. Now, I looked this up and I was absolutely fascinated by this. Humans can actually smell certain aromas better than dogs and rodents. Think about that. So humans, with whatever the evolutionary, and of course I wanted to know, I was reading the journal Nature. Of course, the journal Nature didn't tell me what those aromas were, but they were talking about how the studies for human olfaction are really changing how we think about human olfaction. That humans can follow a scent trail the same way a dog can. That humans can remotely sense things much, much, much better than they originally thought. So I want to say right now, as I smell a very slutty Viognier and understand that this is not only giving me, sexy, no danger, and I'm hungry. Oh, that's good stuff. And then here's the thing. So this guy, Paul Broca, in the 1800s, came up with this idea that humans suck at smelling. So who reads Broca very, very carefully? Sigmund Freud. So Freud, this I can't make this stuff up. Sigmund Freud came up with a theory, and this is an actual theory of psychology, that because human beings stopped evolving our ability to smell like most mammals, that we lost the ability to smell sex like most mammals. And as a result of being able to not smell sex like most mammals, we became sexually repressed. And that sexual repression led, you ready for this? To the potentiality of human beings, Homo habilis and forward, really Homo sapiens, to have mental illness. So according to Paul Broca, channeled through Sigmund Freud, say what you will, man, Dora, some of the other stuff, he's a pretty brilliant guy. And sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. But in the end, Freud had a theory based on Paul Broca's work in the 19th century that mental illness in the human condition was a result of humans losing their ability to smell each other intensely sexually. What these things lead to understanding, and this is what I love learning about wine. I want to learn more about how human noses work. Earthworm palate, mammal palate, sommelier palate. Let's learn about it. And as I studied human olfaction, I went a little beyond the Wikipedia into the Journal of Nature, into peer-reviewed, published scientific studies, and I actually learned something. So the human nose is much better than we think. It sucks at some stuff, but it's really damn good at other stuff. And in the end, our nose leads us to things that we find delicious. So whatever you find delicious, I toast you. I'm going to check a couple of comments. We're going to check a couple of comments. I got some questions. We're going to do a couple questions, and we're going to call it a little bit early. I just want to make sure. I'm going to try to keep these things to 35 to 45 minutes, and keep for those of you on Facebook, I'm going to try to finish within an hour, and those of you on Instagram, I'm going to try to finish in 45 minutes. So I'm going to check a couple questions. Yes, it is recorded. Jen Edelman, one of my favorite people in Palos Verdes. And Denise, I would love to read your son's thesis on olfaction. I would love to. And please look me up and send my way. And just when I think we only have one Dominic, we get two. And just when I think we only have one Nick, we get three. I love it. And you've got, we got some, Nick Profaci is talking about that wonderful rosé. That it must be good because I just poured some more, right? It definitely has that almost like a metallic copper character. Maybe that was, it's even a better description of the sort of the reductive character of this wine. It's not blowing off really, really quickly, but it's a character I really like. That gunpowder kind of flinty character is really probably a very good way of describing this wine. Mrs. Ball, if you guys missed the Mezcal conversation on Friday, go back and check it out. Yeah, it's 2.5 hours, but if you want a master class, so we kind of got topical in the first hour, and then I brought in Jeff Furchtenicht, who's lived down in Oaxaca, and all he does is like play guitar and drink mezcal. So he's like sort of the psychedelic wanderer of Oaxaca. He just kind of wanders from mezcalero to mezcalero and is like, what up with you? You want to play some guitar and drink some mezcal? So he came in for about an hour and a half. In fact, my computer broke, and the process of talking about mezcal and tequila took on a life of its own. If you haven't seen it, I think you would really, really enjoy it, and I definitely recommend it. Give it a shot. And then what I will do is look a couple other things. Make sure if you have any questions. And Carolyn's here. Carolyn was our assistant tasting room manager at our tasting room in Los Olivos, and I miss her horribly. She is my fun, wonderful, and beautiful little geeky friend, and I hope you are wonderful, Carolyn. I miss you. And so does Chanda. We got to bring Chanda back, right? Maybe we'll bring her back on Wednesdays. By the way, all I did is bring my wife onto camera, and the hits went up like 100%. So obviously you guys enjoy looking at her more than me, which I do not have a problem with. She is absolutely a wonderful, wonderful person. Yeah, so Julie asked a question whether that women have more taste buds than men. That's true. The study I read out of the University of Edinburgh said in general women have 1/3 higher taste bud density per square centimeter than men, and about 25 to 35% larger olfactory lobe by virtue of their frontal lobe and their area. Do women smell better than men? I think they do. I think evolutionarily, Julie, it's clear that if women had a higher sense of olfaction than men, that humanity and our species would have had a genetic advantage. So a man having the strength to beat someone down, to kill an animal, to skin that animal, to cut that meat up, and then giving that meat to a woman to smell to determine whether that was safe for the tribe to eat is an incredibly important genetic sort of gateway to safety and to future generations. So clearly there can be a strong argument made that male strength and and female olfaction are incredibly important to the ongoing safety. We still do it, right? Hey, honey, I'm going to put this on my cereal. Oh my God, you were going to put that on your cereal? It's freaking awful. Okay, sorry, my bad. I'll throw it away. I asked an evolutionary biologist one time, Julie, so what's the deal? Like, why do women smell better than men, both literally and figuratively? And she giggled and said, do you want the short answer or the long answer? I said, well, I'm going to have to say this at winemaker dinners. Give me the short answer. She says, to keep stupid men from poisoning themselves. And I will never forget that phrase, to keep stupid men from poisoning themselves. Because, we'll just, I mean, we like to think we're fine, right? One thing I've noticed during quarantine is the few times we have like little kind of tiffs within our relationship, within our quarantine, is generally when times where I don't see the big picture and I stay inside of my own movie and I'm completely unaware or unwilling to be a different character than the character that I have given myself in that moment. And what I'm finding is, as I communicate responsibly, it's not about my movie, it's about making the movie together, which is the hardest thing I've ever learned to do. And if I make it out of this happily married, that's a wonderful thing. And it looks like I am, which means A, she's patient, and B, I married very well. So that was awesome. Since we were discussing wine, earthworms, poetry, and Zappa, I love it. My favorite poet? Favorite poet? Could be Lawrence because of the wasteland. It could be Galway Kinnell because of picking blackberries. It could be my favorite poet. Oh goodness, it's probably Shakespeare. Just because of what he did. I mean, if you look, was he a playwright? Yes. His sonnets are incredible. It could be Ovid, because this book right here, which is 1,000,000 lines. This is 1,000,000 lines of dactylic hexameter. What is dactylic hexameter? Dactylic hexameter is the rhythm in which every great Roman and Greek epic was written. And dactylic hexameter is da-da-dump, 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 da-da-dump. Da-da-dump, 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 da-da-dump. Da-da-dump, 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 da-da-dump. So not only is it easy to memorize dactylic hexameter, and if you were a very good orator in ancient Rome, you could basically, you got to know the whole Quran to get into the University of, into Cairo? No. If you were a great orator, you could give 1,000,000 lines of dactylic hexameter over 2 nights at a bar in Rome. Think about that. You would have this entire thing memorized. And that was your job, is to read Ovid. And there's no other book in Western history besides the Bible that has been quoted more than Ovid's Metamorphoses. And what is Ovid's Metamorphoses about? It's about a bunch of stories about Roman gods and Roman heroes and how they changed and how they were changed by the gods. There's a lot of theories about what Ovid was writing. My theory is that humans don't change. It takes a god to be like, zippity zappity zoo, and suddenly you're a wolf. Congratulations. Or you didn't listen to the gods? Too bad. You get eaten by a bunch of dogs. So Ovid's Metamorphoses, that's got to be pretty important stuff. I mean, I could give you 100 different poets that I love. Was it Akhma Akhmatova, who was a Russian poet of exile? She's also absolutely one of my favorites. Oscar Wilde wrote some pretty decent poetry and is the king of aphorisms, so love that stuff too. Island Brewery is getting a lot of love over here. I love it. I would have never discovered cold climate red wines without California. I wasn't a fan of California Reds, but now I have appreciation. Central Coast and Santa Rita. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate that. Yeah. Mark Reek. These days, if you don't like change, you're really going to hate irrelevance. Pivot, baby. Pas de Bourret, chasse, and on we go. What rosé and Viognier was I drinking, Jan? That's really easy. So my friend Nick Profaci sent me this rosé, and it's hard to see in the sunshine, but that's Profaci rosé 2018 from Gardner, New York, and it's a blend of 4 different hybrid grapes, hybrids of American and French grapes, all put together, and it's a little reductive, but I like me some reductiveness. And then the Viognier, Jan, was the 2018 J.Wilkes Viognier. It's our first Viognier that we've ever done at J.Wilkes, and I'm incredibly happy with it, even though it's the highest alcohol white wine I've ever met. We're going to have a conversation. By the way, Friday, I got to pitch the Friday talk. Friday, we're bringing on Matt Kettman. we're starting to get popular, and I got a yes from the wine columnist for all things Central Coast and Santa Barbara from the Wine Enthusiast. So I'm bringing in the wine writer for all Santa Barbara County wines from the Wine Enthusiast on to talk about the 100-point scale and whether it matters. Is it still relevant? And what kind of like how wine criticism matters now? Is it more important, less important in the world of sequestration? I mean, do we need people to tell us what wines to drink anymore? The future of wine writing, and I'm going to ask him why he became a wine writer. The first question I'm going to ask is, when was the last time you asked a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he says, I want to be a wine writer. So I'm going to ask him what he wanted to be when he grew up and then how he became a wine writer. So that should be kind of fun. All right. So what else do we got? We got loads of folks coming in. Thank you so much. Joe's Garage. Michelle Shin listened to Joe's Garage today, which is a fantastic Frank Zappa album. We would jam in Joe's Garage. We didn't have no dope or LSD, just a couple of quarts of beer, which is classic Frank Zappa because he did not allow anyone from Terry Bozzio to anyone in his group. If he caught you doing drugs, you got kicked out of Frank Zappa's group because he wrote orchestral music that pretended to be rock and roll. Hafiz and Rumi. Oh my gosh. We've got Jennifer Mackey's getting really 9th century Persian on us. There's also I'm trying to remember the name of, also a poet who wrote in sort of early to mid 20th century Alexandria, Egypt. And he was called the Poet of the City. He's very, very famous in these books. We're getting kind of into books. Lawrence Durrell, Alexandria Quartet. If you've got some time and you want to just be like absolutely freaked out by the weirdest narrative in the history of literature, I would suggest you read the Alexandria Quartet. And you would learn all about the poem. And of course, here's one too. The Arabian Nights. That's some good poetry too. So we talked about Viognier, we talked about the human nose. I hope you learned how we can smell, how Sigmund Freud thought that Broca's theory, who wrote that the human olfactory lobe was deficient. Remember, Sigmund Freud said because the human olfactory lobe was deficient, we lost our ability to smell sex like animals, and as a result we became repressed and opened up the potential for mental illness. That is absolutely fantastically interesting. Oh, by the way, if you can't smell, you have a higher chance of getting Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. So if your nose goes crap, you either have COVID, Parkinson's, or Alzheimer's. So the fact that we are all sitting here smelling wine and saying, oh, it's reductive, that means I'm safe. That means I'm good. That means everything is fine. So keep smelling wine, and the moment you don't smell anything, call me. There's some issues. And Tom, stoked you're here. Everybody that came early or late. Constantine. Now, you're keeping me from going anywhere because you say something like Constantine, and I want to bust out James Carroll's Constantine's Sword, which is basically a history of Christianity treating the Jews bad. This is a fantastic read. If you've never, there's actually a version of this online that's like a movie. But James Carroll's Constantine's Sword, another big one. I've made up for the last week on books that have made me who I am. So we'll continue to talk a little bit about books. I'm going to try to figure out where Dead Lioness comes from right now before I drink another drink. And I will be closing up tonight. I hope you guys all had a fantastic time. I certainly did. I'm glad that WVSN Wine just finished up a bottle of Tercero. I've got a bunch of Marsanne out in my fridge that I need to hit too. As we move forward with these tastings, I might start tasting wines that have absolutely nothing to do with what I do for a living, which I think would be perfectly appropriate. And obviously, Larry making those beautiful wines over at Tercero and doing a hell of a job. So thank you all for coming out. Really, really. Oh, Mrs. Ball, thank you that you learned so much. Remember, we got the earthworm palate, the mammal palate, and the sommelier palate. Which one are you going to be? Confirm that you are a sommelier palate. Practice, practice, practice. So one of the first reasons I've heard that taking tasting notes is really, really good for you is because you can expand your palate and remember neurobiological plasticity. I didn't even have to look at my notes. Without a tasting pan, without a spit bucket, without notes, we're here just day drinking and having fun, guys. So I will see you again Wednesday. What are we doing Wednesday? That's a damn good question. Wednesday, we're talking about praising white wine. Why white wine matters and why white wine's worth more than 2 times what the red wines for the same money are worth. I'm going to be praising white wine and giving white wine more love than you probably ever heard any wine geek do. And we're going to talk a little bit also about how and why to take a tasting note. I don't know what we're going to be tasting, but it's going to be fun. So come on in. We'll see you Wednesday at 4:45 over at Facebook and right here at 5 o'clock at Instagram. Take good care, guys. Really, really enjoy it. I'm glad. Oh, wow. 2011 Mourvèdre Tercero. That's a good wine that probably has some nice age on it. I bet it's tasting nice and leathery. Some nice dried fruits on it. Have a fantastic night. Thank you guys for coming out. Thanks everybody for coming out. Really appreciate all of you watching and all of your attention. And hey, let's get to day drinking. Remember to find someone in your social circle, in your family, and in your neighborhood that may need some love. Reach out to them and offer your help. Realize we're all in this together. Trust science, trust your mask, and trust sequestration until we're ready to really go back into the world. And remember, there are doctors, PAs, nurses, first responders, people at your grocery store, people delivering your food that really need you to be careful. And the feeling I have is in a year, the most important thing to me is who in my life I still have in my life. Take care of yourself, be nice to each other, and remember the most important thing right now is flourishing. Let's all flourish. Let's all take care of each other. Take a deep breath, have a sip of wine, and realize that we're going to be together again, and it's going to be in Vegas, and we're going to be drinking a shitload of Fernet. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Hello, Facebook. Welcome so much. My name is Wes Hagen. I'm a winemaker at J.Wilkes Wines, the brand ambassador of the Miller Family Wine Company, and I want to welcome all of you to Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. Here we go again. Week 11. Okay, week 11. Think about that for a second. We've been on the air for 11 weeks. We've done 58 shows and over 63 hours of content. So if you're not tired of me, thank goodness. Thank you so much. Jason and Michelle's on. We're going to have such a good show tonight, guys. I'm really, really excited. We're doing something different now. We're going Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be spent putting together a little extra content, and so nice to see you, Michelle. Thank you so much for your invitation, and it looks like I am going to be able to attend your lecture. So I'm very, very excited about that, and really, really just can't wait. That should be fantastic. And Christopher, welcome, welcome. So glad you guys are being here. If you haven't been here before, here's the deal. We're going to taste the wine at 5 o'clock and talk about it a little bit. Tonight, we are going to get super, super geeky.